Hi guys, let's go ahead and correct this next set of task cards. So the first one we're going to start with is water in the window. Ben observed that puddles outside seem to disappear more quickly when it is a sunny day. He decided to test this by setting up an experiment in which he placed a graduated cylinder with 10 milliliters of water in a dark closet and a graduated cylinder with 10 milliliters of water by the window. Each day he measured the amount of water. His data is shown below. So you can see here day number 1, 2, 3, and 4. He looked at it for 4 days. The initial volume in each was the same, and you see how it goes down much quicker with the water on the windowsill than it does with the water in the closet. Okay, write a testable question this experiment would answer. Okay. So I came up with, will water on the windowsill or in a dark closet evaporate quicker? Identify the independent variable. So what is it that we are purposely changing between these two groups? And it's going to be the location of the water, either on the windowsill or in the dark closet. What is the difference between the volume of water in the windowsill on day 4 and the volume of water in the closet on day 4? So we know that difference is an answer to a subtraction problem. So we're going to take a look at day 4. That's this one right here. So it's going to be 9.5 minus 4, or 5.5 milliliters. Use the data to write a conclusion for this experiment. The water on the windowsill evaporated quicker compared to the water in the closet. This was due to the sun's heat speeding up evaporation. Identify one constant or control variable for this experiment. Okay, so what has to be kept the same here? The starting volume of water absolutely has to be kept the same, had to start with the same amount. Otherwise, right off the bat, one has an advantage over the other. All right, so let's take a look at the second one on rust. Dominique designed an experiment to test the following question. Which liquid will corrode rust from a nail the fastest? Dominique decided to test apple cider vinegar, hydrochloric acid, and a salt and lemon juice solution to determine which liquid breaks down the rust the fastest. So Dominique's plan: pour 300 milliliters of apple cider vinegar into a glass beaker. Pour 300 milliliters of hydrochloric acid into a glass beaker. Pour 300 milliliters of a salt and lemon juice solution in a glass beaker. Use 3 nails with the same amount of rust. Place 1 in each beaker. Start the timer and record how long it takes for the rust to corrode on each nail. All right, so we're going to take a look at our your turn. Identify 2 safety tools that Dominique should use when conducting the experiment. She needs to be wearing gloves and goggles and an apron because she's dealing with acid, and we would not want that to touch her skin, get on her clothes, or splash up into her eyes. If Dominique were to add an additional step after step 3, what would it be? Repeat steps 1 through 3. We need to have 3 trials because what we've got going on here is that we just have 1 going on. That's just 1 trial, and we know that we need to have 3 trials to see if our results are reproducible. Are they reliable? So we would do another trial. Identify one thing that Dominique could be more specific in step 1 of her plan. Okay, so let's take a look back at what step 1 was. All right, we were we have 300 milliliters of apple cider vinegar in a glass beaker, 300 milliliters of hydrochloric acid into a glass beaker, 300 milliliters of salt and a lemon juice solution in a glass beaker. Okay, so where I see a problem is that I don't know how much salt I need to add to this lemon juice solution. So that's what I'm going to put as my step that needs to be in there, is how many grams of salt to use in with that. I know that my end volume needs to be 300 milliliters. So within that 300 milliliters of lemon juice, how much salt do I need to add? I didn't know that. So I need to make sure that that is added, because that would be something that the next scientist who does this experiment would need to know, because that would be a part that needs to stay consistent. Okay, so identify the independent variable in this experiment. So what is it that we purposely changed? We purposely changed the type of liquid, whether it be hydrochloric acid, apple cider vinegar, or the salt and lemon juice combination. Identify the dependent variable. So what is it that we are going to measure? I see that I'm going to determine what breaks down the rust the fastest. So my dependent variable is the amount of time it takes for the rust on the nail to corrode. So take a look at that. Make sure you have all of your correct answers on this one. Scroll up here. Make sure you have all of the correct answers on this one. And then we are about ready to start the third scenario. Okay, this one is about soapy plants. This one we need to write our own experiment. So Ashton wants to conduct an experiment. His question is, does the presence of soap in water affect the growth of a bean plant? His hypothesis is, if one bean plant is watered with soapy water and one bean plant is watered with fresh water, then the bean plant watered with soapy water will not grow as tall, because soap has chemicals that might harm the plant. All right, so let's design an experiment. That's our task. Okay. So we know that with any type of planting, we've got to start with all the basic things. So we're going to put the same amount and type of soil in 6 identical size pots and label the pots A, B, C, D, E, and F. And what this allows us to do, guys, is to do our 3 trials all at once. Okay, so once we get our pots ready, then we could plant the same bean, whatever bean that is. Is that a lima bean? Is that a black bean? Is it a kidney bean? Whatever kind of bean it is, we're going to plant it in the same location, like right down the center, in all of those 6 pots. So we have 6 beans, 1 in each pot, planted in the exact same location. So then we're going to make up our solution. So in a beaker, we're going to make a soap and water mixture by combining 80 milliliters of water and 20 milliliters of soap. So mix that up, and that becomes your soap mixture that you would use. Then we're going to fill another beaker with 100 milliliters of tap water. That one's just regular old water. So then since we have labeled our plants, we're able to keep track which one is receiving the just plain water and which one is receiving the soapy water. So we're going to water plants A, B, and C with 10 milliliters of plain water every 3 days. So 10 milliliters, 10 milliliters, 10 milliliters. Every 3 days, we're going to water the plants, those specific plants. And then we're going to water D, E, and F with 10 milliliters of soapy water every 3 days. So they are being watered the same amount of volume of water, 10 milliliters each time, where they are being watered the same amount of time every 3 days. The only thing that's different is the type of water used. So we're going to continue to do this every 3 days for 30 days. We need to have an ending time for our experiment. So we're going to observe and measure the growth of each plant every 3 days for 30 days. We're going to analyze the results. So when we go into water every 3 days, then that is when we're going to measure and record the growth of our plants at the exact same time. Okay? So make sure that you have this experiment cards written up, and hope this helps, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye now.